Business Weekly, brought to you by National Social Security Fund, NSSF. We secure your future.
Kenya is described as a water-scarce country, yet year in and year out, during the rainy season, the rains cause major havoc in most parts of the country. And what's more worrying is that a lot of water is lost, goes to waste every year due to lack of proper water management systems that could harness the water for use during the dry months. That's the focus of our feature tonight. And on the executive wing, we speak to Kirtesh Shah. He's the proprietor of Olengishu Farm in Kajiado, and he's learnt the art of water harnessing and reveals the fortunes that could be made in harnessing water, harvesting water. But remember, you can send in your thoughts and opinions to 8041 or to the email address ktnbizweekly@standardmedia.co.ke. Good evening and welcome to this edition of KTN Business Weekly. I'm Michael Oyer. The rainy season in any country is supposed to bring with it expectations of improved economic well-being, as it is the conduit towards major economic activities such as food production and power generation. Our main feature delves into the impact and economic potential of water harnessing in the country.
The condition of how villagers in most parts of Kenya fetch leftover water from ponds at the end of a rainy day and even long into the dry season is absurd, despite numerous calls for the financing of construction of water dams, especially in regions seen as arid and semi-arid. However, the irony is that heavy rains being experienced in most parts of the country have brought more doom and gloom rather than the renewed expectation of economic growth. For some time now, cases of floods right across the country have resulted into deaths and massive destruction of property. But you would ask, what does Kenya, a relatively water-scarce country, do with all the excess water during the heavy rainy seasons?
The policy direction with regard to water services was also not very strong before. You see, the government or the policy makers were not putting a lot of emphasis on water development.
Very interesting deed has been done, and I want to take you back to a few years ago. If you look at Kiambu County here, all the coffee farms that was then 50 acres and above had a dam. Each one of them had a dam. They retained the water, they pumped the water, they irrigated coffee, and they had a good crop throughout the year. That did not happen outside. It did not happen in small-scale farming, where it will have to be driven by the government coming in to put in money to put dams.
Much of Kenya typically receives less than 800 milliliters of rainfall per year. The dry season, which occurs from June to October, requires water storage in many parts of the country, yet there has been little funding for the water assistance project, and much of the cleanest water around, that which falls from the sky, has been left unharnessed.
Kenya particularly needs to harvest as much water as possible. Within this sub-region, Eastern and Southern Africa, we are among the most vulnerable in terms of drought. It's only about 20% of Kenya's land that is arable. If 80% of our land is not the best of agricultural land because of water limitations, then naturally harvesting that water when it comes, like now, May is the wettest month in any year, if you could harvest a fraction of that water and direct it to these areas that are marginal in terms of their rainfall, yet with a little bit of rainfall they could become very productive.
Unfortunately, all rainy seasons precede a dry spell, whose outcome is famine and hunger. People and livestock perish from an undersupply of water, while during the rainy season, as it is now, the same reoccurs. According to the Ministry of Water, in 2009, the government endorsed the Water Storage Strategic Plan that seeks to enhance the country's ability to harness rainwater. To this end, the ministry commissioned the construction of 5 medium to large-scale dams right across the country. They include Badasa Dam in Marsabit, Chemususu Dam in Baringo, Kiserian Dam in Kajiado, Sasumua and Murumba Dam in Machakos County. The dams are expected to be completed by the end of 2013, bringing a total of 21 million cubic meters of water into use.
We normally want to put them up in arid and semi-arid areas. The second, of course, are the technical considerations, where you have to have the right topography, the right soil type also, that will give us a maximum impoundment of a dam. The more users we can put to such a structure or such a facility, the better. If we have potential for irrigation, we have potential for hydropower generation, we have potential, of course, for water supply. That combination also is important.
You require a bit of capital investment because you require to do the dams, and dams are not cheap. Maintenance of dams is not cheap either. But can we go back and remember how Egypt has been able to feed itself? It's through Aswan Dam.
I don't think Kenya has actually lagged behind. It's probably average. Most of African countries are underutilizing their water. On the other hand, it should go from average to one of those that are pioneers in this area because it's the most vulnerable. It's one of the few countries that are very vulnerable. We have a population that is growing very fast now, well over 40 million people. But when you take that population and you take the land that is fit for agriculture being only 20%, then you need to put this high on your priority.
Further to this, there is a proposal to have a water management oversight authority that will make it mandatory for developers to come up with water harnessing technology before their projects are even approved, a move supported by the private sector.
We have put in that bill provisions that will allow the authority that we are proposing to create to make rules regarding water harvesting at household level. Not only household level, but at house level.
You could come up with requirements that before you approve any construction, say within Nairobi or within the counties, before you approve any construction, that there has to be provision for water harvesting. In other words, there'll be provisions that you do an underground tank.
The economic potential of harnessing water is huge. For starters, Kenya has been subject to the vagaries of weather as it continues to rely heavily on red-fed agriculture.